Now I'm going to do some sewing using the features of this IntelliStitch. There are 3 different sewing modes for IntelliStitch, and I will demonstrate each of those, and I will also show what each of the buttons do. To power up the machine, I'm using the main power button, which is at the back of my Gammill. Now the machine will always do 1 stitch like that. Mine did almost 2, but it's just checking its position and correcting it. My machine also made 1 beep when it started up, which is important to listen to, and I will explain what that 1 beep means in a moment. Now I'll come around to the front of the machine. Before you start quilting for the day, you need to oil your machine and also warm it up. The IS Turbo CL has an automatic warm-up mode, and I activate that by pressing in the laser button and keeping it held in as I press the black start-stop button. It makes 3 beeps, and then it will stitch, and it'll run fast for 3 minutes. I usually do this off to the side, not over a quilt. After 3 minutes it will shut off automatically. I've already run the warm-up, so I'm just going to shut it off myself. There. It runs quite fast, but that warms everything up, gets it all well lubricated, so it's ready to stitch. That's important because the way IntelliStitch works is, with every stitch it takes in regulated mode, the motor is turning on and off. So it needs to be warmed up and well oiled so it responds quickly and you get the good fast stitch. Okay, let me explain the different buttons here. We have needle down, and if I press that, the needle goes down into the fabric, and that's where it will start. Right? When you stop quilting, it will go down again. Alright, let me press it again, down, and the light is on showing you the down is activated. Up. This button here turns my laser light on. I don't have a laser on my machine at the moment, but that turns the laser light on. Okay, let's look at the dial. If the notch on the knob is on this side of the dial, of the control panel, this is your regulation. This is stitches per inch. When you turn the dial to that side, so the notch is pointing in to the right hand side, that is just constant speed, unregulated. It means when you hit that black button on the handle, the machine will just start running, and the stitch length is entirely dependent upon how fast or slow you move the machine. Let's move it back over here to the regulated sides. The longest stitch we have is B1, which is 1 stitch per inch. The next one is labelled B2, is 2 stitches per inch. They're labelled B1 and B2 because we use those for basting, so B is for basting, B1 and B2. Then we have 6 stitches per inch, 8 stitches per inch, 10, 12, and then the smallest stitch is just labelled S because it's so tiny and it's designed for small work, so small stippling, small fillers, that kind of thing, small curves. Let's go here. I don't have my machine threaded, but I can show you, I can move the machine and show you how what it does at B1. So to activate the machine, because if I move it right now it's not going to sew because my run light isn't on. So I'm going to hit the black button on the right hand handle and watch for that green run light to come on. As soon as it comes on you can let go of the black button. Now it's ready to sew. The machine isn't sewing because I haven't moved the machine. The light was flashing and it went off because I did not move the machine for 8 seconds. It's a safety feature. So let me hit this. Got to make sure my dial is at B1. Okay, hit this again. Green light's on. Now I'm going to move my machine. The needle is going through the fabric after every inch. Listen to it as it goes. It's absolutely quiet in between the stitches. That's a demonstration of how the motor is turning on and off every time a stitch is made. The motor isn't even running in between. let me turn this off. I hit the black button to turn off the machine. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh. So that was the B1. B2, let me do that. Hit the black button on the handle, and now it takes a stitch every ½ inch. The sensor wheels, there's one at the front, the one on the side of the machine. Those are the things that are measuring the distance and telling IQ when it needs to take a stitch. So that's a ½ inch stitch. And if I don't move the machine for 8 seconds, after 4 seconds the light starts to blink. After another 4 seconds it will turn itself off. The light blinks at you, as I said before, it's a safety precaution, because oftentimes you're stitching and you'll stop the machine and you'll go to look at your stitches, put your fingers here, and if you move the machine it's going to stitch if that run light is still on. So it blinks at you to let you know I'm still armed, I'm still dangerous. Okay, I'm going to thread up the machine now and then I'll do some stitching. Okay, I've threaded up my machine, I'm ready to stitch. To bring the bobbin thread to the top so I can start stitching, I'm going to use the red button on the left handle. This is my single stitch button. I'm grabbing hold of the end of the top thread. I'll hit the red button. The machine does one stitch. I can move it away, pull that thread, and it brings up the bobbin thread. So now I can hold on to both ends. Bring it back, just pull it so they're both tight. And to lock those stitches, I can just do repeated single stitches. I'm moving the machine just a little. Notice I was hitting the button all the time. If I just press the button down, it will continue to take single stitches, so I'll demonstrate that. There's the first one. I've still got my thumb on the button and it's continuing to take stitches. And when I release it stops. So now my threads are locked, now I can do some stitching. My dial is at B2. I don't want to do basting stitches, so I'm going to move my dial to the stitch length that I want, and I'm going to go to 10 stitches per inch. That's all set. When I hit the black button, I'm going to watch for the green run light to come on, and then I'll release the black button on the handle. So now we're ready to sew, and as soon as I move the machine, it will start to sew. And I can move very slowly, or I can move faster. And I will still get the 10 stitches per inch. Now if I think those are too long, I'm just going to move my dial over to 12. Move, again I can move slowly or speed up. To go slowly and carefully, I can slow way down and I'll still get the nice even stitches. And when I stop moving the machine will stop stitching. When I start moving the machine again, it will start stitching again, as long as that green run light is still on. So if I'm using a guide, for instance, to go along a seam, I can stop the machine, reposition my guide and carry on stitching without having to keep hitting the stop start button. If I need to go very, very slowly and carefully, I can do that, or I can speed up. And when you want to stop, just hit the black button on the handle again. Now sometimes it's nice when you're stitching in the ditch, for instance, you want to position the machine exactly where you need it to start, and that's when I would use the down button. So I will hit that to set my needle down into my fabric, then I'll bring my guide over, then I'll hit the black button on the handle to start the machine up. And the machine will lift the needle out of the fabric. That's the first thing it will do. So now I can move the machine. Now when I just pause the machine, the needle always stays up. The needle will only go back down again when I hit the black button to stop it. Okay? Let's do that again. Hit the black button, the needle lifts, then I can stitch. When I hit the black button, the needle will go down again, so it keeps the machine in position there. It doesn't drift around. When I want the needle up, just hit that. Okay? So that's regulated stitching. Oh, let me just show that on the S how tiny that stitch is. So I've moved my dial to S, hit my black button, and I'm going to do some little tiny curves. This is where you want a short stitch, so you get nice curves. Okay? So this side of the dial said that's the regulated stitching. And now I'm going to talk about the fail light and the purpose of that fail light. I have my stitch regulation set to 12 stitches per inch, and I've already brought up my bobbin thread, and I'm going to anchor it, and I will start stitching. And the camera will stay on here, and you should see the fail light blinking. And I won't talk, and you should hear a beep too when the fail light blinks, and then I'll explain why it was doing that. So we'll get going. Okay, you saw that. Every time I change direction, and if you come down here you can see, every time I change direction the fail light blinked and there was a little beep. That was telling me that the stitch at the point there was twice the length it should be, which meant I was moving too fast. I was really jerking the machine in and out of that point. That's why the stitch got long, and that's why the machine was beeping at me. It's kind of a little bit of feedback for you. If you get that happening, you know you need to correct the movements you're making. IS works best with you just handling the machine gently. You shouldn't jerk it around. You should not change your speeds very quickly. Just be gentle, move it with one hand. Float in and out of the corners and the points, and you'll get good even stitches. Now if I turn my dial to this side, this is unregulated. This is stitches per second. It's what we call constant speed. It means the motor is running at a constant speed. So when I hit that button, the black button on the handle, the machine will start to run, and I need to move the machine. So here we go. Let's do that. I haven't got it running too fast. If I want to speed it up, I just move my dial, speed it up, and then I can move faster. Slow it down. Because if I stop moving the machine, it carries on stitching right now. So I could get a horrible mess, a big build-up of thread. Eventually my thread would break, I think, so I need to do that. So that's constant speed. Now, there is another mode of stitching with IntelliStitch, and that's constant speed with motion detection. And I need to turn my machine off and turn it on again to put it into that mode. Remember, when I started up, I only heard one beep. That was telling me that the motion detector mode of constant speed was disabled. So I'm going to turn my machine off, turn it on again, and show you how the motion detector mode of constant speed works. Okay, turn it off. Now press down the black button on that handle, hold it down as you turn on. Okay, let go. It made two beeps. That's telling me the motion detector mode is now enabled, it's turned on. So when I hit the black button on the handle, my dial is still on the stitches per second, still on constant speed, but when I hit my black button, the run light comes on, but it's not stitching because I'm not moving the machine. As soon as I move the machine, it's going to start stitching, and when I stop moving the machine, it will stop stitching. This is not regulated stitching, it's constant speed. So I need to keep moving to keep my stitches even. See, if I move faster, my stitches get longer. If I move slowly, the stitches are smaller. This isn't, but when I pause, the machine stops stitching. That gives you a chance to think. If you get lost when you're doing a pattern, sometimes it's hard to hit that black button quick enough to stop the machine from stitching. So having the motion detector mode enabled is useful. So that's the difference. If your machine starts up with 2 beeps, the motion detector mode of constant speed is on. If your machine starts up with 1 beep, the motion detector mode of constant speed is off. Remember, that's not regulation, that's constant speed. Okay, so that's given you a good demonstration of the different modes. Now, in the manual, if you scoot down here, there are a series of practice lessons which are good to go through when you first get your IS, or maybe you have bought a second-hand machine with IS on and you're not sure how it all works. Go through these practice lessons. It gives you things to do, things to stitch. Let's get over here. Gives you examples of things to stitch, and it explains the different modes. So you can decide how you want to use your IntelliStitch.